So back to what I was saying. What I was saying.
What's up, what's up, what's up, friends, family, and fans? It is I'm just keep it straight, Stone Stafford here, and I'm with my co-pilot.
It's the first time.
I'm sorry. I am co-piloting with the pilot,
Johnny Vaughn. My wife is going to appreciate that.
There it
That's
is,
what's up.
because you are somebody.
I am special. I am.
Yo, joining us today, we have our esteemed friend, brother, and colleague, Mr. Leslie Brathwaite, mix engineer extraordinaire. Welcome to life, Leslie.
Welcome to life.
Welcome to life. That's right.
Thanks. I appreciate it. Thank
and
you.
welcome you guys to life. As y'all know, this is where we listen and inspire friends
Everywhere.
We are with Leslie Brathwaite. Now, if you are not in music, then, you may just know Leslie from like Kroger or something. Maybe you bumped into him. But if you are in music, you know who the freak Leslie Brathwaite is. And in our next series on The Come Up, that's what we're going to talk about, homie. It's all about you, man, today.
Yo.
It's all about you. You know what I mean? Doesn't that make you feel special?
Yeah.
How many of these have you done?
You are
Do you ever
loved.
get sick of breaking down
No.
the come up?
He's a teacher. He's a
that's the
teacher at
part
heart.
That's in my DNA. I want to, as Pharrell says, I want to share the codes.
Oh, we done dropped it already. As Pharrell said
name drops.
when we were grabbing some ice cream, some vegan ice cream.
Do we just get this part out of the way? Let's just drop some of
What's
the big
that?
titles real quick.
Oh,
Yeah, so for those of you out who don't know who Pharrell is,
who would that be?
for y'all who don't know who Leslie is, he can do it a lot smoother than I can. I can just do the Pharrells and the Cardi B's and the Akons, and the Madonnas and the Michael Jacksons. But go ahead. Why don't you go ahead and talk about the people that you've worked on and mixed and blah, 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 blah.
I mean, like you said, I've had the privilege and pleasure of working with the likes of Cardi B, Pharrell. I can't not mention the Queen Bee, Beyonce. I had the privilege of working with her a lot over the past few years, and with the team. It's a team effort with her. And what I love about that experience in particular is it's working with my colleagues, working with Tony Maserati and Stewart and Guru, and we really work as a team. So I love that particular situation a lot.
Later on this, are you going to be able to tell the UK story or no?
Yeah.
I like that story.
I can
All
tell that story. I can tell
So,
that story.
so basically, Leslie has had a journey. You've been in this game how long? What?
30
I've
years.
been in this game for 30.
30? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
First big hit was I graduated from Full Sail in '92, so yeah, and then first big mix that came out was in '94. Monica's "Don't Take It Personal."
All right, so before the hit, let's go to the beginning. All right, Leslie Brathwaite, he's from the Caribbean.
Yes.
Am I wrong? Virgin Islands.
Yes, from St. Thomas,
So
Virgin
St.
Islands.
Thomas, Leslie, was it music from jump or what? Go on and take us through it.
It was. I've always been so in love with music that I don't remember the exact time I fell in love with it.
Okay.
But I will tell you there's two key things of my childhood that aided in what I am right now. First thing is my dad had a really extensive record collection. So I would, at night, he had all these records out in the living room. He had a wall full of records. And I would, at night, go out and sneak out and listen to I would take the turntable down, put it in the middle of the floor. I would have records all around me. I'd just be sitting there going through records with these big headphones that looked like the headphones that pilots wore back in the day. And I would just be sitting there listening to records. And I also think the way I was listening to records informed who I became, because in headphones, you're in your own world.
Right.
You're hearing things. I'm hearing things moving around. Back in the 70s and 80s, panning was a thing. Like, you would have a whole guitar over here.
there, yeah.
You would have a whole drum kit over here. And, like, that was fascinating.
So your ears became developed early.
Yes, I was in that mode of, what did they do? How did they make that sound like that? I was always into deconstructing things at a very early. I did that with all my toys, all my keyboard, everything I got. I would take it apart into its bare parts and then put it back together and make sure it can work.
And your ears are super specialized now. He walked into the podcast room and was like, I'm like, what's wrong? You need some things in the corners. It's so loud.
So I've always had this issue. When I first started working here at Icon and Leslie was here all the time, I always had that issue of the imposter syndrome when he would walk in the room, because he would do that. And I had to remind myself, I'm a live engineer.
Yeah.
We accept certain things that
right.
studio engineers
Yeah,
don't.
I was saying off camera and off mic that it's so bad with me that because my wife and I have so many conversations in our bathroom,
treated the bathroom.
I had to treat the bathroom like if you look up in the ceiling in our bathroom, it looks like a studio, like a recording studio.
So that's the public version.
Yeah.
The private version is he dropped some number 2 so loud, his wife got tired of hearing it.
I don't want to hear the reverberation.
That
the
part.
fractions of that droplet.
That part.
So little Leslie,
Yeah.
is in headphones. Now, was there ever a desire to be a producer or anything? Or-
No, the interesting thing is I don't know that I even formulated what I wanted to be until I got to Full Sail. Okay.
Oh, wow.
So this is after high school. Here's what I knew.
Before you go to Full Sail, because you were talking about the tinkering thing, there's this one story that you got to tell because I just freaking love it. There was a computer you got that meant something very special to you. Will you talk about that computer and tell the story behind it?
And it actually informs a lot of how I think, how my brain works. So I was at this, my mom worked at the University of the Virgin Islands, and they had just gotten an Apple II computer. And it was one of the first largely commercial personal computers. It was kind of big, but still, and you would have them one in every public school, that kind of thing. And some public schools, not even all public schools had them. So it was a fairly new thing. And I would go up there every day and try to figure out how to use this thing, and I got really good at it. And I was fascinated by the fact that I could see this where our world was going, but none of the college students would be on it. So I was the one always on it.
And
So
how old
one
are you?
day, I'm like 9, 10.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah, I'm real young, always on the campus. And one day I go up there, and it was broken, and the president was standing around, and the lady whose office it was across from was standing around. And the one thing my mom always loved, the fact that she knew where I was all the time. She would always know I'm where the computer is. So they were standing around the computer, and they were like, yeah, we just need to go ahead and get a new one. The president of the university, his name was Dr. Kerwin. And he was like, we got to just go ahead and get a new one. And I was like, excuse me, Dr. Kerwin, if you give me a chance, let me see if I can fix it, see what's wrong with it before you waste all that money. And he was like, okay.
Dr. Kerr was like, oh, little cute little Leslie. Oh,
Like,
I
all
think
right.
he can fix a computer.
So I sat there all night. He told the lady whose office it sat outside of, get him the tools, whatever he needs, da-da-da. I sat there, messed with it. So a few days later, my mom called me into her office, and she said, Dr. Kerwin dropped off a gift for you. And I was like, what? And come to find out, I fixed the computer the next day. I left a note that it was fixed. I figured out what was wrong. It was just like a lot of times with those computers, if you move them too funny in the motherboard, the slots get loose, and nothing works. So you got to reseat all the things in the slots. And
As every 9-year-old would know.
yeah, of course. So I left that note, thinking, oh, they got their computer back, they're good. He bought a new computer anyway, and he gave my mom the old computer and said, he can have this. I see the potential. He wrote like a really nice card too. Like, I see the potential.
You
Make
still
sure
have
you
it?
always feed it. I still have the card.
Nice.
Yep.
Oh.
Make sure you always feed his hunger for learning. Da da da. And that computer is actually what I dug up during quarantine, during COVID, because I
No
had
way.
nothing else to do.
No
and
way.
So that computer is actually in my room right now.
That's awesome.
That's
I had it in my
what's up.
storage still. So
That
still in the
is
box.
awesome.
I'm one of those who
Yeah,
like,
you one of them. You get the box
Yeah.
and
I
everything.
keep the box. I keep the box in the box. I'm one of those. All my
The
toys,
the
all my
box.
childhood keyboards.
Keep it thin in the box.
I got like the rolling keyboards that I used to get all in the box.
Wow.
I got an
Resale
MPC
value is
60
through the-
box that
What?
came in.
Well, you know
Absolutely.
what? You just told on yourself. Because when you moved out, we had all these freaking boxes
And see,
in
that's
the
what I'm saying.
outside thing. And we were like, who saved all these boxes? And everyone was like, it's probably Leslie.
Me. It was me. Yeah. It was me.
Oh, my God.
So getting back to Young
Yeah,
Leslie.
so yeah, Full Sail.
that all of those components of listening to records all the time, breaking down music, that was one piece of it. The other piece of it is in the Virgin Islands, in the Caribbean in general, every island has what they call a carnival season. And ours actually happens to fall right around my birthday, April 30th. It is usually the last day of our carnival week. And what I would always be fascinated by is they would have these big trucks with a bunch of speakers on them and amps and the instruments, and they going down the street and parading and da-da-da. And I would always be walking next to the trucks, like holding my ears going, man, this is fascinating. I would see all the cords and the wires and da-da-da. And eventually I did that so much, the guys got to know me. I would help wrap cables. I would help pick up crates of whatever to help them load the trucks. I just always used to want to be around for that part.
Did
'Cause I
they
wanted
ever have
know.
to pay you?
No.
Did you ever say, I ain't doing this for free?
Absolutely not.
Just
I
let that
was
sit.
Yeah, I was excited that they even let me.
Nice, yeah.
Like I was like, they let me help. That was the thing.
Right.
And then once they started letting me help, I was like, I'm in there.
Mm-hmm.
They know my name. They start asking me, do I want to get in on the McDonald's run? And so
Just
that's
be around. That was
I'm
it.
just around,
Yeah.
and they let me. And then it became my thing. And then it morphed into, by the time I'm in high school, I'm like telling people, okay, you got to wrap the cables like this, and we got to put this over here. And I'm like, oh, wait, I'm running the whole,
See,
I'm hooking stuff up.
last time I'm going to inject because I already know what's going to happen. And I need you guys to know so your antennas are up. Because I talk to Leslie all the time. We're kindred spirits where teaching and stuff's concerned. He's going to, and he's just going to speak right over it. He's going to drop so many little nuggets that are actually the key point that you can miss. It's like, for example, right here, he was like, all I know is I'm in now. They know my name. They know who I am. That right there was the key point on that whole story, is the relationship and making himself known and liked and usable. We just talked about value.
And valuable. That was
Just
the key.
talked about value. That was what blew all that open. So there's going to be a bunch of that, I'm telling you right
Yeah.
now in this conversation. So I just want you guys' antennas to be up. And I'm not going to interject anymore.
No, please
But
do.
go ahead.
But that's the thing is I always wanted to make myself valuable in any space I was in. I'm like that now. Anybody can tell you when I come around their studio space, or I always try to make myself valuable. And that was the thing I was so excited about early, is they saw my value. They were like, oh, Leslie got it. He can figure out who gets the amps to what place and da-da-da. And I love that. And it was always about just understanding how all this stuff worked. I was always fascinated with that side of things. Never wanted to be a producer or in the limelight or a rapper or a singer, da-da-da. The technical, the gadgets, the buttons, the hooking up, this sounding so incredible, that was where my brain was. And when I got in high school, I realized, it's funny, this guy sold my mom a set of encyclopedias.
The hard covers with dust on them.
Yes. So for those of you who don't know, there was a string of books.
Were they Britannica or were they?
They were, what was the other one? Not the Britannica.
Wasn't Britannica? Okay.
It was the other brand.
It was like you were like a god if you had the Encyclopedia
Yes.
Britannica
and we
back
had like
in the day.
a nice set too. Like
Yeah.
my mom splurged a bit for
Yo.
that. And like so I started looking up all the music and the recording studios and da-da-da. And there it was. And I was like, oh, there's jobs. You can do this.
Right.
People actually have a job. And then I started correlating the stuff I was seeing in the encyclopedias with all the credits I was reading. And I always used to see this one name because Michael Jackson was my favorite. Bruce Sweden. Yep. And I used to pronounce it right. I used to say Sweden. Bruce
Sweden.
Oh, so what is it?
His real
Bruce
name
Sweden?
Sweden.
Ah.
Is how you pronounce it.
I used to pronounce it Sweden.
I used to say
Sweden.
Sweden. Yeah, I used to say Bruce Sweden.
Bruce Sweden.
Bruce Sweden, the god, the goat. God rest his soul. He
peace.
passed
Yep.
away, a year ago?
Yeah, I was going to say just recently.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I got to know him over the course of my recent year, past 10 years. We got really tight.
Does
So
he know
was
that
very
story?
cool. He does.
Nice.
Absolutely. That was
Nice.
and full circle moment. I met and worked with him in 1995 on the Michael Jackson History album. So that was one of the moments for me. I was more nervous to meet him than I was
What were you
Michael.
doing on that project? The way you-
Recording, and then I ended up mixing. I ended up mixing They Don't Care About Us with Bruce. I ended up mixing this time around a song with Biggie with Bruce.
I don't think I knew that.
And
I don't
ended
think
up- and
this
then I
is the
mixed
first
the
for me.
remix by myself of They Don't Care About That. They don't care.
See,
They don't care
you
about
care
just
us.
about us,
cavalierly just dropped this stuff out. Like how do we not know this?
Yeah, that was a huge full circle moment for me.
What okay, so you heard me talk about my whole imposter syndrome moment when you walked in. Because, I mean, when I got here as an engineer, before I even started managing here, that was right when Happy happened.
Okay.
So anybody who didn't know your name definitely knew it then. Like, I mean, obviously, I was ingrained in the music of Atlanta, so I knew it. But, like, that was a whole, for some of us, a different level of stuff.
For me too.
Walking into the room with Bruce back then, like, how did you ground yourself? Like, how do you? And I mean, it was a Michael Jackson project on top of it.
There was
like,
a
what
conversation that was always happening in my brain going, stay calm, it's okay, you deserve to be here, it's all good, stay professional, da-da-da. There was a voice And then there was another person in my head on this side going, "Oh my God, this is the greatest moment of my life. This is Michael Jackson and Bruce Medina. Oh my God." So there was always this thing going on in my brain. But like I said, I was more nervous to meet Bruce than I was Michael because I idolized Michael, wanted to be like Mike. I had a Jerry curl when I was younger, the whole night.
I cannot even see that.
I'm gonna send y'all some pictures.
No, I don't think I want that image.
That's gonna be the headshot.
You can't unsee it.
That's why I don't want to see it.
That's the cover photo for the podcast.
Can't unsee
That's what it is.
You cannot
That's the cover photo for this podcast.
That'll be the cover photo.
My Jerry curl.
That'll be the cover photo.
You cannot unsee my Jerry. I had the drippy.
What? Oh, you were letting your soul glow.
Absolutely. I had that curl because of Michael. Man. But I was way more nervous to meet Bruce because he did what I aspired. He was what I aspired to be, and he was the best at it.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And his credits don't even they don't stop at Michael. It's all kind of stuff. It's Ella Fitzgerald and Count Basie.
Jesus.
And his credits are ridiculous, like ridiculous.
Wow.
Talking about an engineer that defined a few generations, not just one.
And genres at the same time too.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, like his
Lena
touches.
Horne. Bruce went nuts, and he was side by side with Quincy Jones for years. So that a lot of that was because of Quincy and these two geniuses. Next level.
So how did you find out about Full Sail? What led you there?
So in high school, so like I said, I would put these things together, reading credits, reading encyclopedias, and realizing, okay, this is a career thing. Okay, I really want to do this. So I would go to my guidance counselor's office every day and be like, "Miss Cook, I don't really want to go to college." Now, this was like blasphemy to my mom.
Blasphemy to anybody back then.
She worked at the University of the Virgin Islands. She was the director of admissions. So
you were in.
So she was the first in her family to go to college. And it also didn't work in my favor that I had great. I graduated second in my class in high school. So it just did not work out in my favor for me to be like, I don't want to go to college. But I saw early that was not going to be my path. I don't want to go to college. I don't want to go to a 4-year thing. So every day I go in the guidance counselor's office. I don't want to do this. I want to learn music. I want to learn about this. See, I brought the encyclopedia to her office one day. See, it's recording studios and da-da-da.
Now, see, I like that you did that. And you weren't just another kid being like, college just isn't for me. It's just like you had the data, if you will.
Yes.
You had the backup, like, look, this is why I don't think college is for me. And you presented like, kids, if you truly don't feel like traditional college is for you, have the backup.
Absolutely.
Have your display. Like, this is why. Because your parents will take you way more seriously. Otherwise, you're just another kid that doesn't want to go to school.
And there's so much truth in that because my youngest daughter, Isabel, is just like that. She will come with a whole PowerPoint presentation. She comes with the whole...
Is she the one you built the computer with over
Yes.
the...
Yes.
Okay.
She is just like me.
Yeah.
Zoe, the oldest, is just like her mother. But I'm telling you, she's the same way. She has a presentation. She has this is what I want. And I was so proud of her this Christmas because usually, they typical kids. I was
going to say Christmas.
She came with a list and it only had one thing on it. And she said, "Daddy, I only want one thing." And I said, "Why? You usually have a pretty, and their list isn't crazy. It's just a lot of little trinkets that are done." She was like, "I just want to spend all my time learning how to use this camera." So I got her a really nice Canon. And she has been on it, like learning how to aperture, and she's learning. She's online. I love these kids.
Sounds like her daddy.
Yeah, and she's like on YouTube and learning how to do. She taught me how to set up my camera online at home, my stream camera.
Nice.
She taught me how to do certain filters and love her brain, but same spirit. So yes, so I presented this information like, look, I think there's places I can learn to do this. I don't know where this is. So one day, heading up to my guidance counselor's office in high school, and it was a long trek up a pathway, and her office was at the end of the
classic
pathway. Long trek, because when you pull into our school, you go up this path, and her office is the first office you see. Then the principal's office is further up. So I'm walking up. It was this afternoon after school. So the field was, if you picture it behind me, I'm walking off the field. And I'm walking up to go, get my stuff, and I look up and I see her standing right in front of her door, and she has a big smile on her face. And I was like, ooh, what are you smiling about? So immediately, and she had this pamphlet in her hand, and immediately I was like, she found me a school.
Oh,
She found me a school. She found me a school. And I started running. And I get there, and she has this little pamphlet. It's a 2-page brown pamphlet. I still have it, too. It says Full Sail Center for the Recording Arts, because at the time, they weren't a university yet.
Right.
And when I saw it, I flipped it. I saw that they had a curriculum. They only have 2 programs, audio and film. And I was like, this is genius. Now my mom will speak to me again. Because for most of my senior year, my mom was not really like into speaking to me.
But
I
kudos
really, like,
to your guidance counselor.
Oh,
man.
my God.
Kudos to her. Wow.
Oh, my God. And God rest her soul. She passed about maybe 5 years ago. Dang. But she was the best person. She was like the only adult who listened to me, the only adult who actually thought I can not go to college and make something of my life.
Right.
Like, she was amazing. Her name was
Sometimes
Carolyn Cook.
That was her
Carolyn
job.
Cook.
Yeah.
All right, we want to shout out to
Amazing.
Carolyn
Shout out to
Cook.
her for doing her job.
Yeah.
If you know her family, make sure they hear this.
I
What the
know
hell?
her family well, yeah. And so, like, that's the thing. Like, that was one of the best days of my life. Like, I walked up that pathway and saw that thing, and I was like, yes.
Nice.
Because I knew I was going to figure this out anyway. But now that I had somewhere to go, somewhere to say, hey, Mom, I know you don't approve of me not going to college, but this is where I'm going. And then my dad took me on the little tour. We flew up to it from St. Thomas to Orlando, toured the campus. As soon as I walked in there, I was like,
What was in there? What was in there when you went? Because when I ended up not going to Full Sail. But when I took my tour, they had a room full of Sony DMX 100s, and that's what got me. Was that? So what was the first thing you saw? When
I
you
walked
in?
into a Tascam lab. The Tascam machines, the tape machines,
Tape
kind of like
machines.
the Fostex joints that we used to use back in the day, little 4 tracks.
Yep.
It was machines like that, but they were made by Tascam. So I was already familiar with the machines. I wasn't familiar with the name. That was the first time I ever seen the name Tascam. But I knew exactly what the machine did because Fostex made the same type of machines. And we walked into a lab, and there was students sitting there with their own little Tascam learning how to mix and da-da-da. And I was like, this is amazing. I need to be here now.
Right.
I was like, this is the best thing ever. So at Full Sail is where, as I went through the curriculum, I started learning, oh, I like mixing. I like this art of it. I like this thing. And that's where I really developed how to take all the information and the desire and the things that I loved and package it into, this is what I can do. Okay.
So all of these years, you didn't even know what it was called. What you were.
I had very specific things, and I've always been like this in life. And I know for a fact that Stone can relate to what I'm about to say because he and I are very much alike. At a very early age, I figured out, I always learned how to reverse engineer things. I always knew what I wanted, and I knew how to negate all the things that don't serve what I wanted. I figured that out at an early age, and I see it in my daughter now. Yeah. I know that, for instance, my mom was real big on good grades. If you brought home a bad grade, your whole day, week, whatever, be shut down. So I never got bad grades. That's the reason why I graduated second in my class. Right. It's not because I cared about schoolwork. I hated school. But I didn't want my video game and music life interrupted. So I knew what I had to do for that not to happen. So I negate everything that doesn't serve this purpose.
And we're in such a different generation now.
Yeah.
They do everything that ain't got nothing to do with it and still expect to get that thing.
Right. And my youngest daughter is like me. My youngest daughter figures out, okay, this is what pisses mommy and daddy off. I'm just not going to do that. And she is golden. The oldest is Zoe. She's a lot more like her mother. She's
going to test you out.
Zoe's like, I always have this thing where I say, and I'm not going to use absolutes, but most women, and most men will agree with me, most women, if you give a woman 2 choices, they typically, inherently, choose the most difficult way to do something. And I don't know what that's about.
I was nervous in what you're going to say, but I'm like, where's the lie? Let me know when the lie comes.
So my oldest daughter is like that. She's going to choose the most difficult way to do something. And not by choice on a conscious level. I think that's just how she's wired. My youngest is more tuned into our mode of thinking where we're like, okay, what serves the goal? What doesn't serve me? So I think it also informs who I am as a person. Like I don't drink, I don't smoke,
logic.
I don't drink, I don't smoke, and I don't do those things because I just don't see the value.
They don't serve the purpose, right?
They don't serve me.
Right.
So I figured that out at a very early age, and I think that is what informed my thinking to your question of, I didn't really know what I wanted to be. I was very certain what I did not want to be. I didn't want to be unhappy. I didn't want to be like all the adults in my life who went to work 6 days a week, complained about their jobs, and looked forward to happy hour. And I was like, y'all don't see something wrong with that? Like 1 hour a week is the thing you look forward to? That's terrible.
It's a really happy
That's
hour, though.
awful. Like, so I just knew what I didn't want to be.
on.
So I was very clear on, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. I don't want to be an artist. I don't want to be in the limelight. Didn't like that part of it, but I love gadgets and gear and hooking stuff up and hearing how things work sonically. And so I know I want to do that. And if there's a career for that, put me there.
So what made, because you got a bunch of kids in school now, trying to learn music, the music business. What made Full Sail work for you? What made and we'll try to go a little deeper than just, you get out of it, what you put into it. What did Leslie do to make Full Sail work for him? What can these kids do in these other schools? Because it doesn't have to be Full Sail.
Right.
What can they do to make that school work for them and get the most out of it?
I think for me, so there's two things about Full Sail that I absolutely love and took advantage of. And I think that's the thing is you got to see in a situation what speaks to you and what you can get the most out of. So for me, immediately Full Sail spoke to me because the kids I saw learning were learning doing. They were touching the gear, hands-on. And that was a big thing for me. Like I said, every toy I got, I took it apart. And then I put it back together, hands-on. I got to learn how something works. I didn't even know that's what I was doing at the time.
Right.
I learned later in life that that's how my brain was working. I needed to know how it worked, so I can fix it, but I just needed to know how it worked. The other thing is Full Sail's motto spoke to me.
You could have been a good gynecologist, but moving on. But that's actually why I almost was one.
Just can't help yourself.
The L.I.F.E podcast. You never know what you're going to get.
But it's the truth.
Yeah.
No, you're going to get that from him.
It is the absolute truth.
I had no clue. If you would have asked me for $10 million, would we talk about gynecology tonight? I would have missed that.
It's been about 2 episodes. I knew it was coming.
I'd have missed it.
Go ahead.
So Full Sail's motto, if you're serious about your dream, we'll take your dream seriously. That spoke to me.
I like that.
Because what it implied was it's a contract. It implied a few things. We're a bunch of adults who will take your dream seriously. I never had an adult outside of Miss Cook take my dream seriously. The second thing is it implied a contract. You have to first take your dream seriously, and then we'll match you. And we'll, you know what I'm saying? So it's, if you're serious about your dream, we'll take your dream seriously.
And I like that a lot better.
That made me go, oh, well, I'm serious about my dream.
Yeah.
So that made me put all the energy into it. And so to answer your question, I think anyone at any school, figure out the thing that you can get out of that program, out of that degree program, that school. Figure out the thing that you know you can pull out of there that's valuable to you. And the other thing that was super valuable is they never sent me home. I remember one time I had a lab instructor. He messed up. He told me one time, very early in my Full Sail run, he said, you're because it's a 24-hour campus. They promoted that whole learning style of classes, 24 hours to prepare us for this life. So I had classes at 1 a.m., 3 a.m., 5 in the afternoon, round the clock schedule. And he said to me one time, I was like, man, I wish I had more time to complete this project. I really want to stay in the lab. He was like, your badge works 24/7 and nobody has a problem with you being here. Oh, he messed up.
Yeah.
You never left.
Berkeley does that. I just realized that Berkeley does that.
He messed up when he told me I can actually be here 24/7. I never left that campus. I was there all the time.
Nice.
Everybody got to know me, and it was about learning and doing. And so I think that's the thing is make sure you're pulling out of that situation everything you can. Like even in studios, I mean, we could, and we'll probably jump to this part of the story at some point. But even when I was allowed to be an intern, and I was at Dallas Austin studio, and they would go to the club every night. That was the greatest thing in the world to me. All y'all go to the club, and all I got to do is clean the studio up, and then I get to play with the shop tapes.
Yeah.
Cool. Clean the studio, made that thing look like hotel clean, and then I would get to play with the shop tapes. And I remember Dallas was commissioned to remix this Bob Marley project, and he got the jamming reel He got jamming on 24-inch
Yo.
reel, separated Bob Marley vocals, tracks.
Left you in the studio with it by yourself.
And so I had to make a copy of it, and I asked Dallas. I said, "Man, if I buy a reel, would you let me copy that onto my own personal reel and just use that for practice when y'all are going to?" He was like, "Absolutely."
Okay, I'm sorry. I gotta do it. I gotta do it though, Leslie.
What?
Oh,
I
you
lost
keep
it.
dropping so many things.
I lost it.
Now, don't just say this because you know what I'm trying to get at. Be honest. Be dead honest. But like, you know what, Stone? I don't really know if that was it. I'm fine with that, right? Do you think he would have felt comfortable with you doing that? And hear me, if you didn't clean the studio the way you cleaned it.
Nope. I know for a fact that my access was directly tied to my work ethic. My access was always about, because I heard them say it. I heard Dallas say, "Man, Leslie be here longer than everybody, man. You can do whatever you want." He always attached the sentence that I wanted to hear.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? I remember when I first became his tape dupe guy, when I wasn't even an assistant yet, and I would just be making copies, and I always made sure his tapes were super loud, and because I always heard him saying, "Man, this ain't loud enough." And so when I got my shot, I was like, "Man, I'm gonna make sure I push the levels, and I'm gonna get him the chrome tapes and not the regular ones." I bought my own pack of metal tapes because the studio didn't want to buy them, and I would like make him these metal, crunch it, da da da. And he'd be like, "Man, who?" I remember one day he walked in there. He was like, "Who made this tape?" And I was like, "Me." He was like, "From now on, you making all my tapes."
That's how you make a tape. That's how you drive.
From now on, that's how you drive.
I mean, so this is the way I'm because you know you and I both love making sayings like me, you, and Capriccio, right? If you show that you care about my baby, I'm going to trust you with my baby.
Absolutely.
That's all I ever try
It's
to.
Full Sales motto, just reword it. Like
That's
literally,
all I ever. Well, it is, and I think it works better than. Look, I'll get behind you if you get behind me. It's so easy. What did I say? A trained monkey can do it.
Right.
That didn't quite hit home the way yours did. So
Are you calling me a monkey? Yeah,
that's how everyone
That's where
took
it
it.
comes
I was really given a compliment, but
He called me a
everyone felt
monkey.
like I was calling him a monkey. But that's
Shout out to the monkeypox.
You go back to. I'm at a loss for words because I keep trying to get this story across to you. And I hate saying the whole word. And Johnny gets on me about this generation type thing. One, I hate it because it makes me feel old. Two, I realize they're growing up in different times, but that doesn't change the the fundamentals.
Absolutely.
It doesn't change the
and we
fundamentals.
always agree on that.
Yeah.
And it ties into something I always tell kids on a technical level. Instead of learning the gear, learn the craft. The craft will always serve you. The gear changes. But if you learn the craft of mixing, you'll be able to translate it.
And you know what I love about your story so far? Only thing I've ever heard was that you connected to something you wanted to do and you pursued what you loved to do. You weren't pursuing a dream. You weren't pursuing, you knew there was a career that got you excited about it, but you weren't pursuing, I'm going to do this so I can make this amount of money so I can work with. You was like, this is what I love to do. I found my purpose. Don't go there. I found my passion. I'm going to pursue this. That's it. Yeah. And you did it with all your heart, soul, and mind and effort. But look at the things that came by default.
Yes.
By default.
Yes.
I hear something different.
Well, that's what I heard. What did you hear from the left side of the room?
I heard that he's enjoying the journey. He likes to tinker. Everything he was doing was about being able to tinker. This is what I want to play with this.
Yes.
I'm about
give me the opportunity.
Give me the opportunity to do this thing.
Yeah. And I'm not even trying to present
because he found he enjoyed doing that, right?
I just wanted to learn how to mix better.
And that's it. I always people want to do it because they want Leslie Brathwaite's credit. It's not so much I like playing with metal tapes, and we don't use tapes anymore. I still enjoy playing with old stuff.
Right.
You ain't gonna get tapes no more. Right. I still mess with MP3s just to see what you can do with an MP3.
Doesn't that sound funny? I mess with MP3s like it's an ancient tech.
I mean, it
kind of is.
No, I know, but it just sounds so funny.
But that's the thing. Like you get now, there's the ulterior motive of attaching the end goal of what Leslie has accomplished, what Bruce has accomplished, instead of I love doing this. Let me do everything I can to just do.
And I also think it breaks down to. I also think it breaks down to a mentality, and so again, I don't know when I learned this, but I always kind of understood that. I think most people who, go through life, they think things like winning. They think of winning, and they think of winning as a result. and they only think of it as a result. Winning is a decision that you got to make off top. Winning is a process. Winning is a mindset. It can then be a result, and if it's a result enough times, it can become culture. But winning is all of that. It's not just a result. So same concept where people feel like, oh, it's the moments that I want Dallas to say this about me or that about me. No, it's just how I was all the time. I wasn't ever trying to get. I remember I told a story one time online. I remember Puff. So when he got fired, Andre Hero fired him from Uptown because he was making a lot of noise. He was bringing Jodeci and all this stuff through, and I think Puff was just getting flashy, and Andre didn't like that. Fired him. Puff came down to Atlanta and was at Dallas' studio. Dallas let him use his office, and was there. First few days, he was in there crying every day, crying, bawling like a grown man crying, head on the desk, crying, not knowing what he was gonna do. One day he was in there, he was doing something, and I was so engulfed in the hip hop culture, and he could not remember the name of the producer that did this thing that he was trying to do with Biggie and them. And I was in the next room stacking tapes. His Dallas's office was right next to the tape closet. So I heard Puff, and he was in there like going crazy trying to remember dude's name. And I snuck over there and I was like, excuse me, Mr. Combs, the producer's name you're talking about is Easy Mo B. He was like, I love this kid. Keep him around me. Da-da-da. So it's those moments where I just took the opportunity. I waited till things calmed down, and I just kind of peeked my head in. I was like, excuse me, Mr.
You
Combs.
manipulated some stuff, didn't you?
Let me let you know.
You manipulated the situation a little bit.
That wasn't manipulation.
So it's just those moments of knowing when to be useful.
Absolutely.
Because you can also try to be useful in the wrong moment.
In wrong time. You're annoying.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I waited, and then I just kind of peeked my head in. And then he lost his mind when I said that. And I became his best friend the whole time he was down there. And he was like, oh, let's get Leslie in here, da-da-da. And, just for simple things, like I'm playing the DATs back in the meeting or X, Y, but I got in those rooms.
Yeah.
And so it's always about just trying to do your best. But to your earlier point, there was always that level of Dallas letting me know I wouldn't have had the access to play with those Bob Marley reels if I didn't do what I was supposed to do. Because he noticed what I was supposed to do.
And you did it well.
He noticed. He would come. I remember him coming back from the club one night going, who cleaned these bathrooms? And why do we have a cleaning crew? Because Leslie is killing it. And da-da-da. And oh my God. And some people look at that as, well, I don't want to clean toilets. And I always tell these kids these days, I'm like, no, it's not about the toilets. It's the principle. It's if whatever you're asked to do, you do it well, you do it with enthusiasm. That's what translates in that person's mind about you.
Yeah.
They
And
then
don't worry about
say,
somebody seeing you.
oh, Leslie's going to do this well because he really cleans the hell out of them toilets. So now I can trust him and he does these tapes really well. All my tapes be sounding great. Oh, man. Oh, so now you start an assistant? Oh, he's going to be the best assistant. Watch. Then you start hearing people brag about you. And you're like, oh, okay. Now you know you made it in those rooms.
So obviously you kept doing that throughout your come up, right? So we leave off with now you're doing all this stuff with Dallas. You're at Dart. What was the next step? What happened next?
The next step for me was trying to figure out just how to, like, again, always being valuable in space. Dallas smoked blunts all the time. I always kept Philly's blunts in my backpack. I kept lighters. I remember the first day I was around him, he was walking around looking for a lighter. So I always kept everything in my backpack. So whenever he would come out the room, I got blunts, lighter, I'm handing them to him before he even know to ask. Right. And so I became that guy to everybody in the studio. I became, where's Leslie? It almost started to feel like they couldn't function without me being around.
Now,
so
if you're around that
cool.
type of person, like, I'm not saying y'all got to become the connect.
Right,
You understand? You ain't got to be the plug.
I'm not buying weed.
Just
yeah.
read through the lines.
Yeah, I'm not buying weed. I'm not. Yeah,
Back to music. What?
I'm just making myself useful. The things I know I can legally purchase for this person.
We're not telling no one to go out there and be a mule.
Don't do that. No criminal activity.
So
No.
your first real opportunity for your first real credit. How did that come about?
My first real opportunity really came with TLC, actually. They were recording a song called Get It Up for the Poetic Justice soundtrack. And the night before, they had to re-record a whole bunch of parts. Prince had kind of required them to change. I can't remember what the whole jargon was behind that, but they had to re-record a whole bunch of stuff. The engineer at the time, he didn't show up. He was sick. I don't know what happened. So we're sitting there, and Dallas is stressing, and he's calling around, can't get an engineer. And me and Tion had gotten cool because I would go on her food runs and da-da-da. And she knew I went to Full Sail. I told her I went to school for this, da-da-da. So she was like, well, Leslie can do it. He went to school for it. And I was like, oh. So we go in there, and I knew what to do. I knew how to get through it. I messed up a couple times, erased a couple vocals.
Thanks for keeping it real.
But Tion was on some, nah, you good, let's go. Because she was the one that was like, no, we can do this. We got to get through this. And you went to school for this. We're going to figure this out.
Nice.
And then what Dallas saw that night, and he told me this later, is he saw a chemistry working with Tion and Chili. And then Rosanda came by, Chili. She came by. And he had seen a chemistry with me and them that he had never seen with another engineer. And he was like, oh, you're going to be the one I'm using to record them. Because your chemistry, you got them to work while being playful, but they got all the work done.
Right.
And you were always wrangling them in, and you were always, because I kind of took control of the session at a certain point in a way that I knew, okay, we got to get this done. So I know y'all like to play, and I know you
do like to play.
Yes, and I know you, Tion, but it's 2 a.m. and I think one of the things that I think Dallas noticed is I was like, all right, Tion, let's get Rosanda in the booth. Let's let her do her part real quick because it's 2 a.m. And, she already, I can tell she's going to be complaining about this and that. So let's get her in, do that part. Then we do Tion's part. So I think just the natural flow of the session kind of elevated me to that point of Dallas. Then the following week, Dallas had to record something for somebody. I can't remember who it was. And he was like, he wants Leslie in the session. And he started asking Darren Prindle and those guys to teach me. And they were nice. Darren, Alvin rest his soul.
Ooh, Uncle Al.
Oh, yep. Neil Pogue. They were all the guys who were the guys at the time, but they would teach me. They wanted me around. They saw the potential. So they were as excited to teach me as I was to learn. So that's an important part too, is when you connect with mentors that want to teach you.
Right.
That was amazing to me. I was like, Alvin, Neil, and Darren want to teach me stuff? This is amazing. Like,
and you just soak it up.
Yeah, and I'm soaking it up, and So, so it was really just about head down, working, understanding the situations. I think one of the biggest things, believe it or not, one of the biggest things that helped catapult my career, whether it's in the beginning, middle, or end, knowing when to talk. That is a huge thing that a lot of these kids these days, they don't understand that nuance of knowing when to say something in a session, knowing when not to. That could be everything, and understanding how to read a room.
Yeah,
understanding. I have so this is the story. I'm going to tell you a story. Okay. This is a very huge come up story for me. There's two in particular. One involves Madonna. I can say her name on that one because that's a more positive story. The other story that I'm about to tell you involves a artist that I can't say her name.
Well, we'll say well-known female artist.
Well-known female artist.
We'll call her Woofer.
So, well-known female artist. Well-known female artist used to come to the studio before she blew up. And she had this reputation for going through engineers. She had this reputation for firing engineers all the time. She was a bit mean. A very different take on what you would think of her. Knowing her
from her
publicly,
public persona,
you wouldn't get that she was that mean, but she was kind of mean. So one day, because I knew my chance was coming, because I'm like lowly intern / assistant, still trying to come up. So one day I go to one of the engineers. I'm like, why does she keep firing y'all? Like, why does she keep running through engineers? Like, he was like, she just don't like when you leave the room. So I was like, well, just don't leave the room. And they were like, aw, poor young thing. You just don't.
You'll get it.
You'll get it. So finally, John Rogers, the studio manager, called me one day. And he was like, yo, so-and-so, well-known female artist is coming in to work. And so you're next up. She needs an engineer. Okay. Show up. I'm on time, sitting there. I'm watching TV. She is 5 hours late. So she walks in, and mind you, I'd never spoken to her before. I may have nodded my head as she walked through the studio once. Never spoken to her. She walks in. I turn around. I extend my hand. I was like, hey, nice to meet you. Good to be working with you. She looked at the TV and she goes, can you turn that off? She didn't shake my hand. then she sat down in the back, and I was like, ooh. So I turned the TV off, and I turned back around. I was just kind of like waiting, and it was really awkward. So like a good solid 4 minutes went by, and then she kicked the reel over into my direction. Just kicked it over in my direction. Didn't say anything to me. And I was like, okay.
This is before she blew up?
Yeah.
Jeez.
And so I took the reel, and I put it on the tape machine. The tape machine was right in the same room with us because this was a smaller room at DARP. This was the C room. And so I put the machine up, I aligned it, da-da-da. Then she gets on the phone. Big gray flip phones, the joints. She gets on the phone, and I'm like, okay. So I turn back around. And then I started hearing words in the conversation that kind of let me know, this is probably a little private. So it's kind of like if I'm in a room with you, and let's say Tosh calls you, and I can tell, oh, this conversation is a little snippy or greasy or whatever, I'm going to just ease on out the room. I'm going to just be like, okay, you know.
Right.
So the tape kept playing back in my head. Don't leave the room.
Don't leave the room.
Don't leave the room.
You put some headphones on. That's what you
So
did.
that's what I did.
Yeah.
I literally
That's what I would have done.
picked up some headphones and I put them on to give the impression that I wasn't listening to her conversation, but I'm not going to leave the room. So I put the headphones on and I pushed play, act like I was listening to. I actually was listening to the track, and I was like, "Oh, this is jamming. This is kind of dope. Okay, cool." So at the time, she was arguing with what I later found out was her group mate who was married. Didn't know that at the time. So it's super toxic. I started hearing words like abortion, da-da-da, and I'm just like, find a happy place. I don't know what to do here. So all of a sudden, the phone comes flying over my head, hits the TV, cracks the TV, actually, shatters into pieces. So, because I'm headphones on, I'm like, oh, she just flipped. So then I see her walk out the room, and at DARP, there was one vocal booth in the middle of the C and D room, and you had to walk out to get into the vocal booth.
Yep.
So all of a sudden, she walks in the vocal booth. Now, mind you, zero
No
conversation.
communication between y'all.
She walks in the vocal booth and she walks up to the mic. She puts the headphones on, and she takes one off and goes like this. So I was like, oh, she must be ready to sing. So I push play and record. She sang the entire, and I'm gonna tell you what song it is too when we get off mic.
Oh, okay. You can't. Okay, yeah.
I'm gonna tell you after. She sang the entire song down, and that vocal that we recorded that day ended up being the lead vocal in that release, and it's a pretty big release. So she recorded the entire song down. As soon as she finished, she stepped back. She put she put the other headphone back on, and she went like this. So I was like, oh, she must
Time
want
for
to
playback.
listen. Push play. She listened. She then walked up to the mic, went like this, and then I recorded her again. And then while she was recording, she stopped, and she was like, that, and I was like, oh, she must want to go back, and she did kind of mess that word up. So I rewound it a little bit, punched her in, kept going.
So far, she
takes.
hasn't said anything
Ain't
to
told
you.
you.
Not
Nothing.
a word. 2 takes. She walks out of the booth and goes that way. So I'm in the room, I'm sitting there, and I'm sitting there, I'm sitting there, and like 3 hours go by. True story. I'm not making this up.
No, I
Go. Just go.
3 hours go by. So finally I'm
3
like,
hours.
man, okay, I can't leave the room. So then I sneak out the door. Like, okay, I don't hear no conversation. So I peek to the end. I look around the corner, down at the bathrooms. Both bathroom doors open. Okay, cool. So I know there's not a session in the B room today. I know nobody's in the A room. Okay, so then I just keep sneaking. I sneak. Finally, I get to the studio manager's office. I'm like, yo, where'd,
What's her face?
What's her face? Large,
Woofa.
very successful female recording artist. Where did she go? He was like, oh, she left alone. He was like, she left like 3 hours ago. I was like, really? He was like, she loves, and he was like, she loves you. I was like, what? He was like, oh, she bragged about you. She said, you're great. She wants to work with you tomorrow. And I was like, hold on. So then I tell him the story, not knowing what he's about to say. So I tell him the story, and he goes, oh, I see why she likes you. He was like, y'all developed the language, and she didn't have to speak to you. She loves you.
Wow.
And I didn't get it at the time. Like, the light bulb went off, like, oh, I just did whatever she wanted, and she didn't even have to talk to me.
Yeah.
And that was her thing. And that was us for the better part of about 4 years. Like, me and you today have had more conversation than me and her have had in 4 years.
Wow.
True story.
Today.
True story. True. She never spoke. And here's the thing. She was never mean to me. She never yelled at me or cursed at me. But she was always in a real tense place.
Yeah.
And what I realized is probably in her mind, she had to get in that space to kind of go in there and let it all come out on the track. And she did that often. That story I just told, in various iterations, pretty much happened every day. She would argue every day and then go in the booth and sing and leave.
Knock it out.
All the time. Like,
And
I
every
worked with
single
her
one
a
of
lot.
them was one takers, and they will always be the released record.
Most of the time.
Let me ask you so, and you can feel free to, because some stuff is personal, but I know you're a transparent guy. But when you were engineering those things like that, were you on any kind of a salary, or you just got paid hourly for the session?
I got paid hourly for the session.
See, let me tell you this right now. You already know.
Yeah, I got paid
Now,
hourly.
how do I say this? Because
She wasted a lot of time.
I have a habit of being too honest. I know engineers. That's fair to say, right? That way I can keep it somewhat ambiguous.
That's fair to say.
I know engineers that would never have waited 5 hours for the artist to arrive, would have asked to be paid for the hour that they waited for wasting their time, would have never stayed for 3 hours after the artist left. I know engineers right now, today, as of yesterday, as of today, that would have never done that in a million years.
And that part, and there was a cap, though. He wasn't going to pay me if I sat, like, if she was 8 hours late, he would then work it out with me. John would be like, come on, bro, can we?
But did you hear yourself? 8 hours.
Yeah.
not 80 minutes. 8 hours.
I was there on time all the time.
Would never, in the circle that I know of, would never happen in a million years.
Yeah.
They are above that.
Yeah, no, I would sit there and wait because I know. And here's the point of the story: the come up was that was miserable, but I knew. I didn't even know at the time, but what ended up happening is I met a lot of people because of her.
Yes.
Then Babyface would poke her face in the room and come talk to her, and then he'd be like, "Oh, I remember you from working with successful female artists." And then I met so and so and da da da. So it was a come up in a sense of I just kept my head down and worked.
And just did your job.
And then successful female artists, she was actually the reason and the conduit to me working with Akon.
Really?
Whoa, really?
Because if you remember,
So you walk out of that room.
I don't want to give too much context clues, but
Yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah. Be careful.
Yeah.
Be very careful.
Yeah. You walk out of that room and none of that happens.
Huh?
You walk out of the room,
Exactly.
none of that
Walk out of
happened.
that room
And
and
all
I
those
want to give in
engineers who walked
context.
out.
I want to give in context. I think she did you dirty. I think she did you wrong. She was extremely inconsiderate. All of those things, because that's what it was. But the way you chose to take it and the way you
Absolutely.
operated turned into a plethora of opportunities. Just like you said, it was miserable. It was uncomfortable, highly inconvenient. It was all of that stuff. No one's saying that it wasn't.
Right.
But look what it got you.
Yes.
That's my only point I'm trying to say.
And-
It doesn't mean that every single time that happens with every artist that'll happen.
Right.
We're not saying that. But you don't know.
And it's also about developing certain mental skills too, because when John pointed out to me in his office that the whole time we were developing a language, that was valuable to me to understand that you got to know that certain things are important to certain people. And me being able to be sharp enough to pay attention to when she did this and took her ear off and go, oh, she must want to record. Yeah. That's something I from that moment I started paying attention to how I am in every room, how I'm responding to somebody, how I'm responding to somebody's needs. So that was actually a good, I wouldn't say good, but it was a lesson. It was a valuable lesson for me that ended up being a real huge part of my come up story.
It's a good thing cell phones weren't really back then because you would have never have noticed her doing that because you would have been on your phone waiting on her. I was waiting on you.
Yep. Instagram has messed up a bunch of careers.
Yeah.
All right, the come up stories.
Yes.
Dope. I've let Stone do his thing. We're gonna do more Stone's thing because this is the stuff that people want to hear. But I'm a youngin, so I need some sugar and some candy.
Okay.
You have been responsible for some massive hits in the last 5 years. You have been a part of cultural shifts in music in 3 different decades, and not just musically, movies too. Crazy, Sexy, Cool, Southern Playalistic Cadillac Music. That's for me, because when I was born, that's for me the most pivotal. But you've lived through them. So which of the eras that you've had your fingerprints on that a lot of people haven't heard is the most transformative for you?
I would have to say the 90s. 90s R&B and 90s hip hop, and just to be such a part of something we were building that we didn't even realize we were building at the time, but being a part and trickling over into the early 2000s with Southern trap, how Atlanta has just had a stranglehold on the industry ever since. But all of that, being a part of all that stuff has been amazing. Like, I mean, I'm working with Dallas and Jermaine Dupri, and I'm seeing different iterations of the greatest 90s R&B stuff, and I got to work with Aaliyah, and I got to work with so-and-so, and, you know, some people came out of it, you know, really good friends, and it's just the 90s era of music, whether it's R&B and hip-hop, was kind of amazing.
That's why I mentioned both, because
it was kind of amazing.
They happened kind of at the same time, but they were separate branches.
And we didn't even know how amazing it was when we were in it. When we were doing it, it was like fun, and we were like kids, and, you know, all the TLC stuff, and running around with Lisa playing, you know, water balloon fights in a studio with electronics. Like,
and you knew better, Mr. Tinker.
We all knew better. Like, but we were just having such the time of our lives. And then it was also about the work, and then it was also about my come up and stories like I just told. That was a side of it too, and realizing, okay, and even when in '95 meeting Bruce and Michael Jackson and having to keep on this professional face while I'm exploding inside, and, you know, just all of that was like.
But I don't want to downplay or gloss over the magnitude and the breadth, width, and height of your career. Because so far we stuck to a lot of Atlanta stuff. And yeah, we went Michael Jackson, and we went Madonna. But can we not go Carrie Underwood? I can't remember. I get the mix up. Was it Carrie Underwood or
Cher? I did Cher. That was a very interesting. That was so much. That was so much fun. So Cher came about. She actually had her management reach out and said, I really want this guy to mix a couple records on the Farewell Tour album. And so it was interesting because when I met her, she came to Atlanta. She came by herself, you know, and I was like, dang it, I wish you were an icon at that. I know, I was at Patchwork. And she walked in, and we sat there and talked, and she knew that I knew Dallas. And, you know, it's an interesting story. I'd met Cyndi Lauper on a flight to Aspen one year. Me and my family go skiing every year. Right. I snowboard, my wife skis, kids split. But I met Cyndi Lauper on a flight the year before. We talked about Dallas. We talked about music industry. And then she said, she asked me had I ever worked with Cher, and I was like, no. She was like, Cher and I are really good friends, da, da, da. So full circle moment, the following year, I'm telling Cher, you know, I sat on a flight with Cyndi Lauper, and she talked about you the whole time. And she was like, oh, I love her. Da, da. So anyway, so she comes in. She was like, okay, let's go to a baseball game. So me and her go to the Braves game.
You and Cher?
Me and Cher, by ourselves, just the two of us, go to a baseball game. So we're sitting there, and she just kind of, I think she was burnt out from all the stuff she was doing before she got to Atlanta. So she just wanted to chill. She wanted to have a chill afternoon. And then we went somewhere to eat, and one of her management team met us at the restaurant. I can't even remember where. I think it was like One Midtown Kitchen or somewhere over in there by Purple Dragon at the time. It was something in that area. So then we get back to the studio, and I said to her, so what made you want to work with me? And she was like, you mixed So Fresh and So Clean. And I was like,
oh my gosh, the impact.
I'm like, you listen to that was the only question I had in my mind.
So back to what I was saying. What I was saying.